special guest is former chairman of the institute, and he does things in a very intensive way. What we would usually do a 3 roundtable, he's trying to compress it into one. We would usually, like, yes, 3 of you trying to do the presentation. We would do it in 3 events. But that notwithstanding, so we're going to do this. I'm going to pass it on to you because Andrew was, before I chaired the board, Andrew was chairing the board of trustee in KRI. So when he called me and said he wants to come over and do this thing, I said, oh, of course. So we have people from BNM, SC, and also Kementerian Economy. Yeah, we just to tell everybody, I think we're taping this thing. It's not live, but we will do a slightly delayed uploading afterwards.
Sure.
Okay, for the whole session. Logistically, I will probably leave it to you on how you're going to handle these things. I'll be not a quasi-host. This is Andrew's show. I'll just sit here and listen, like everybody else. I think we should reserve. I'm not sure how you're going to do it, like a presentation followed by Q&A, or you're going to do a presentation Q&A. Up to you.
I think we just finished the presentation. There's too much information. We realize. We apologize. Too intense. But I think, this is a process of a lot of thinking. So we share.
Yeah.
And then we can open up discussion.
Yeah.
Okay?
So I think in as far as the thing, I'll leave it to you then. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We should make this as typically we would do this sort of thing, and we would be very open and very relaxed about this.
Everybody relax.
Yeah. Okay. I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Dr. Nung. Such a great pleasure to meet everybody. We thought this is a rare opportunity. Okay, so I'll tell you what the introduction. I'm going to very quickly go through it, but the basic message is very simple. As you know, I used to work at the World Bank. I was at Bank Negara, and I'm very, very keen on development. And I also realized, things like sustainable development goals is not working. Okay? 18% fulfilled, announced in 2015, supposed to achieve by 2030. We have 6 years to go, only 18% fulfilled. So very clearly at the global level, not working. So what is the solution, at the grassroots level? How are we going to solve this issue? That's what's facing us. How do we develop, inclusive green development? That's the essence of it. And this is not going to be theory. This is all about practice. And what I'm trying to tell you, our partners here, Professor John Crawford from University of Glasgow, Sneha and Yagyash are technologists, on the data side, working, Sneha is much broader than that. She's a fully trained chartered accountant working with Bhutan and now India, okay? So very quickly, let me run through this for you. So I'm going to give an overview. John, will tell you what the future of the well-being economy is, okay? From a, both academic as well as a practical. John has run the global soil health program for WEF, working with Microsoft and many other people on how to implement global health soil. He'll explain all this, right? And Sneha is, this very high-sounding name, New Earth ecosystem. But we really want to operationalize well-being because, GDP is not working. And we have just finished in last June a conference with Bhutan, all right, on operationalizing gross national happiness. And as a result of this, Bhutan has decided to adopt our village-based program and scale it to 600 villages. So I'm just sharing this with you. Now we're thinking about how to do this in Sabah. So anyway, what is the logic that I really want to talk about? And to put it in a very, it's very complex because it is no longer linear. It's not just top down, you get a development. It's about complex systems. Why do complex systems have difficulty working? And the major thinking is that the old system of GDP is linear and mechanical and the new system is biological and organic. In very simple terms. And the reason why, the present, how do we deliver programs is by silo. And we saw this. The left hand does not talk to the right hand. And some, people say, it's not involving me, go to somebody else. So from the bottom up, they're saying, who do I talk to? Right? A very simple explanation is, in Malaysia, we have 17 DFIs delivering, grassroots support. And everybody's in their little, departments, put it this way, okay? So the issue is, what are the barriers to change? And increasingly, it's becoming clearer. The small cannot scale. Everybody wants money, but if you cannot scale, you cannot win. Right? So how do you scale? You need money, you need knowledge. Okay? So there are huge barriers. So the team just came back from Sabah. We went to Nabawan. We adopt a couple of 4 villages there, talking to the Murut population. We can go into the detail later. But it became very clear. The young want change. But they don't know how to get the money. They don't know how to get the knowledge. And they don't have access to markets. Okay? So these are, very simple issues. So we piloted, and we believe, when we started on this, we believed initially that technology can help. But in fact, AI is changing the game, because AI can deliver very fast, changes. And how do we protect, deal with this? And everything needs energy. So the key message is, we now need to think how to empower the young to actually deliver change. Because the old, in fact, are resisting change. I mean, we don't like to say this.
You're the oldest in the room.
I'm the oldest in the room. But I won't be here. It's not my problem, right? Not my problem, okay? You guys do it, right? So here's the issue, right? The first thing that you need to understand, everything is about energy. Money is energy. Finance is energy, right? The simplest way to think about this is, if you can, in Bhutan, how they make money in Bhutan, which is totally landlocked? They have hydropower. Hydropower, they make Bitcoin. You never think about it that way? But they're not necessarily poor, but they actually can mint Bitcoin. And because of India, next to India, they have the best digital public infrastructure. Okay? So there are advantages by being small. And as long as you have energy, you can do. In very simple terms, why is Sarawak succeeding? Sarawak got energy. The rest of us Tara energy. Right? It's a very simple concept. You got energy, you got money. Right? Now, so the logistic is scaling. Everybody faces dynamic change. But at dynamic change, what are the 4 factors? There is meta. If your mindset is wrong, if you look at the problem wrong, you don't have the solution, right? But the macro is the big trends that impact on you, and the micro is all the details. But between the micro and the macro is mezzo. It is the institution. And let's put it this way, why is EU failing? Because EU has become the most, bureaucratic of the issues. The more you add the bureaucracy, the more you add transaction costs to the rakyat. And that's the heart of the problem. So we know that AI can drive the productivity growth. So how do we use it? I mean, I don't want to go into in detail, right? Sorry. So, AI is actually stand for aspiration and impact. Everybody talk ESG. The guys who designed this didn't explain it very carefully. E, aspiration. S, aspiration. What you deliver is through G. If you don't have the G, you cannot deliver, right? And so the real issue is, we sort out the governance, and we have the trust, and we put the money in the young and the people who want to make the change. We reduce their transactions costs. We create competitive markets, trust, transparency, and talent building. That's the simple way to think about this. Now, so development theory, development change It's not theory. You know, we go to university, wow, you read the textbook on development and all this. It's not theory. These guys don't get it. Development is about practice and experimentation. Okay? So the World Bank, I'm sorry to use the word World Bank, but you know, all these multilateral bodies, they give you one-size-fits-all solutions. Free market, rule of law, democracy, success. Why is everybody protesting? Because you are not delivering. And even America is now abandoning free trade, you know, rule of law being eroded. The democracy is now, you know, increasingly more and more right-wing, right? Or democracy becoming towards autocracy. So the issue is, it is about the practice of experimentation through innovation and entrepreneurship. Now, those who succeed fear change. Those who want to succeed welcome risk. So, you know, this is the issue, right? So in Malaysia, we have created in NEP's huge success, we created the professional class. But have we created the entrepreneurial class? Because the professional income can never beat the entrepreneur who has high income but high risk. So the only way we can do this is through opening up the opportunity, and AR is now going to do it. Okay? So it's actually about empowering the individual as well as the institutions to welcome change. Because only change will you get development and well-being. Remaining standing still is not a status quo. So here is this theory of development, innovation, which this MIT professor Clayton Christensen talked about the J curve and the S curve. Now, this actually has far more general application than people realize. When you are small, when you are young, you need more energy. The older people, the richer people have to give money to the poor people to go down that J curve. The parents give to the young because it is their interest to do so. The government has to give it because you have to create the infrastructure to allow them to do this curve. But if they don't, they have to go through that J curve before they get into the S curve. That means at that point of time, they take off, and then they become rich. But Islamic finance is absolutely right, because the rich, when you get rich, you have to do the zakat to give the poor. But a lot of people get rich, they don't give the zakat. They don't help the poor. So in Asia, all the successful high-tech, they become crazy rich Asians. They forget about the rakyat. Okay, I'm being very, very blunt here, right? So the question is, how do we do the circular economy? The circular economy under Islamic finance is absolutely right, because the rich must give to the poor, right? You are seeding the poor to become at least middle income. They have a chance. As long as they remain in that red area in the J, they're in a trap. They cannot get out of it, right? So, you know, the concept is very simple, but it is a circular issue. The poor strives hard, take risks to become rich, but after you get rich, you cannot forget the poor. You have to give back, right? So the concept is very clear, and now AI is going to help this. So we're doing 2 pilot projects, one in Sapulot in Nabawan. As you know, 8 out of the 10 poorest villages in Malaysia are in Sabah, okay? And about 4 or 5 of them in Nabawan, right? So we're working with the Murut community. They have river, they have forest, they have farming, you know, and they have beautiful ecotourism. And, you know, we're working on them how to help them, you know, grow. But, you know, when we went there about 3 years ago, the politics was very complicated. We went to Ruka instead, right? And in Ruka, Sneha lived in Bhutan during that period, worked with the Tarayana Foundation, which is the Queen Mother Foundation. They built villages across Bhutan. Semua gotong royong. You know, the foundation give the money, the people help build the houses themselves. But, you know, 20 years later, they're saying, I have now a house, but where's the income? So the question, therefore, we are using technology that actually builds an app, satellite, etc., get the information to create the dashboard, the data dashboard. And with the data dashboard, we can then design tailor programs to meet the needs of the kampung. And what is this? In Malaysian terms, Tun Razak's development book. Correct or not? What was Tun Razak's development book? He went down as DO, ADO. He has to have a book. How many roads, how many hospitals, how many, what are the issues that Kampong face? And then the DO will report to the senior resident, the resident develop. And today it's all about going up all the PM's department, right? So that's a scaling issue. So to a large extent, we tend to forget that the Kampong people believe in their ancient knowledge of how to farm, how to protect the forests, how to protect their rivers. But industrial farming, like palm oil, bringing their own problems. The villages we face, the upstream farm, the upstream oil palm and etc., use chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides. They poison the river, they poison the water. After COVID, no more animals to hunt, so their protein levels go down, and they're suffering. Okay? So how do we use internal funding, local funding, and global funding, and local knowledge, internal knowledge, tacit knowledge, local knowledge, and global funding at the federal or sort of multilateral banks, foundations, etc., and apply this as a solution. So, don't worry about the details. The whole concept idea is to be blended, right? Where actually it's a complex issue. So it's no longer just about scientific management. It's about heart-driven empowerment. How to empower the young? And the empowering of people is not an expense, but an investment in future. So when in Bhutan, we had this wonderful phrase from this young man, the heart of education is education to the heart. Ini Islamic finance juga, because it is about faith. It's about ethical values. It's not about exploitation. Okay? So in that very simple, we are shifting from a linear hierarchical system to a dynamic, complex ecosystem. And this is something that, John and Sneha will talk about. So I hope, this very short introduction will give you an idea of what we're trying to achieve. This is not theory. This is just framing the idea so that we can design, but the design of the actual programs using technology will have to be tailored exactly to what the local conditions are. Much more realistic, much more practical. Okay, so John, you now take over. Sorry, talk very fast.
So keep the question till later.
Yeah, we'll keep the questions until later.
Yeah.
John.
We'll try and get through the presentations quite quickly to leave plenty of time for discussion. Can everybody hear me okay? Is it okay not to use,
Yeah.
I like to stand up
Yeah.
and be theatrical.
We're not facing you because we're also recording for live.
Well, that's what I'm worried about.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, here. There are two phones.
Great.
Yeah.
So, Andrew said this is not about theory, it's about development. And I've spent the last 5 years of my life, so I'm a theoretical physicist. So telling me that this is not about theory, it's about practice is horrifying, right? So I spent the last 5 years trying to turn the previous 30 years of academic experience into practice on the ground. And I focused on soil health because if you want to address climate, food insecurity, water insecurity, and the biodiversity collapse with doing one thing, fixing soil is a pretty good idea. There's more carbon in soil than there is in all of the plants and trees and the atmosphere combined. And agriculture is degrading and losing that carbon and degrading soil functionality. So it's a potential win-win. In theory, it's easy. In practice, it's quite hard. And my approach was recognizing, my experience was that governments at COP are good at talking, not so good at doing. It's very hard to do. So I thought, naively, that what I'll do is I'll get global corporates together around a table because they have the reach, the governance, and the resources to deliver change if they choose to do it. So I happened to be doing some consultancy work for a number of different companies on digital technology and sustainability and and their business models moving forward. And so I persuaded them that we should try to work together to actually deliver a solution. That included Microsoft, Shell, Bayer, BASF, some big companies, but a relatively small number of companies. And our challenge was to develop an investable framework to deliver soil health. Because if these companies can make money, they will do it. It's, in paper, in theory, very simple. So we set about trying to develop that theory, and as I say, we had that global reach. If that group of companies, small group of companies, decided to do it, we could restore the health in 60% of the world's soils and offset about 10% of global emissions, which is about half of the hard-to-abate carbon emissions. Very significant. However, getting an investable framework for a bunch of companies that are all competing with each other is actually quite hard. And during the process, we ended up getting invited to lead a lighthouse project with the World Economic Forum to transform the European food system to nature positive and carbon neutral. So that was another 2 years of a bigger group of companies. This time the idea was to do a whole value chain solution, recognizing that you cannot change the supply side if you don't also change the demand side. So we needed a whole systems approach, building up more and more complexity in the system. And we actually produced a report, developed a solution, but the companies could not work together to deliver that on the ground. During all of this time, Andrew and I were talking about the alternative approach instead of top-down, bottom-up. And so we were developing ideas because I was beginning to sense that we weren't going to make success of a top-down approach like this. The other piece of experience over the last 4 years is I've been working with the city of Glasgow as part of the global C40 cities network. So this is a network of cities that are trying to get to net zero together and help each other in the process. Kuala Lumpur is one of the C40 cities as well. And together those cities represent nearly 1 billion people and about 1/4 of the world's GDP. So we had a big project funded to work with one of those cities, Glasgow, to help Glasgow move towards net zero, but not just achieving net zero, but doing it in a way that reduces inequality. And we used a thing called the Donut Economic Framework, which is on the right-hand side. The inner boundary represents social foundations. You want to make sure that everybody has a minimum set of social foundations in which to support their living. And then the outer ring represents the planetary boundaries. You don't want the economy to be exceeding the level of consumption that can be sustained by the Earth system. So you want to work in that green space in between in that diagram. The key point I want to make is that although we're trying to do one thing, which is net zero, we're actually trying to do a lot of things. We're trying to achieve against a whole bunch of different targets, social, environmental, and economic targets at the same time. Now, from the lessons of the last 5 or 6 years, two main lessons I want to talk about, and for me they were a bit of a revelation. Lesson number 1, if you think in a compartmentalized way, it's not possible to deliver optimized outcomes for multiple targets. So on the right-hand side of that diagram, you've got a simple single line between policy and target. Each policy delivers a particular outcome. This is the way that we tend to think because that's just the way we've set things up in government and actually even in communities. But the real world isn't like that. Those targets and policies form a highly complex interacting network. So the real world policies impact multiple targets. These targets interact with each other, and it's very hard to predict the consequences of policies and very hard to optimize policies towards delivering an outcome. Andrew mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, 169 targets. If you look at the bottom right-hand side of that slide, that is the interaction network between those targets. Those targets are not isolated. If you fiddle around trying to achieve one target, you will make it more difficult or easier to achieve another target in ways that we don't properly understand, and you could argue you will never understand. So if you're going to embrace this real-world complexity, that policies are highly interactive, targets interact with each other, it's a very complex thing, it fundamentally changes the way you need to approach the problem. And we can talk in more detail during the discussion, but the fundamental difference is we need to move from a command and control mindset, imagining that we can predict and control, to embracing uncertainty and empowering communities to find their own solutions very much in a bottom-up way. The second lesson borrows from a theory developed by a mutual friend of ours. In fact, Stuart Kaufman introduced Andrew and I. And he's developed a thing called the theory of the adjacent possible, which basically means in social, technical, and economic systems, and in the biosphere, the future is, in principle, hard or impossible to predict. And I love this quote here. The only way to know how a complex system will behave after you modify it is to modify it and see how it behaves. And that, in summary, is what the implications of this. Which means that you can't dictate or present a one-size-fits-all to communities on how to get themselves out of poverty or how to achieve a whole bunch of goals. In practice, communities have to try things. The only way you can succeed is to fail and learn from your failures and get better over time. And the way you do that depends very strongly on local conditions, so there is no one-size-fits-all. The challenge with a bottom-up approach and a learning by doing approach like this is that progress can be very slow and it's very difficult to scale. So the focus of our work is how can you speed that up and how can you scale? And it turns out that scale and pace are actually linked together in a way that helps us find the solution. So the way forward is to parallelize learning by doing. So we have lots of communities and lots of places trying to do things, and for example, even cities as part of the C14 cities network, we're all trying to learn by doing, making mistakes, getting some things right, but we're not sharing. If we use some kind of trusted digital infrastructure, which usually means a public open infrastructure, where everybody has full control over their knowledge and data, and we share what works and co-create solutions together, you can massively accelerate the rate of improvement and at the same time scale, because you're doing it everywhere at the same time. The outcomes, the outcomes of this kind of digital infrastructure, and I'm after this slide going to pass over to Sneha, who will explain in detail what that infrastructure looks like. It enables communities and individuals to share what works and to co-create solutions. It raises knowledge and awareness amongst communities of the challenges and the opportunities. It has the potential to reduce urban-rural inequality because urban communities, in a sense, it doesn't matter where you live if you're digitally connected to each other. It helps manage risks because everybody is living through the risk. Everybody is living through the risk landscape at the same time, and succeeding in a way that can be readily observed and recorded. And a key element of all of this is ongoing real-time monitoring and evaluation, allowing communities to know if they're on the right track or not, and then to take action accordingly. And it scales fast. And what I mean by that is that if you've got some kind of distributed learning network like this, the rate of learning, the rate of innovation increases as the square of the number of communities. So if you double the communities, you've quadrupled the rate of innovation. And it scales exponentially in time. Actually, it's faster than exponential in time. So this, the scaling and the pace are no longer a challenge, they are the solution. I'll hand over to Sneha to explain the idea of how you can actually implement such a digital infrastructure.
Okay, I think Andrew and John here has, they've set the stage and they've explained why we need to, move to something new and we need to try something new so that we can scale very fast and we can realize SDGs really fast. So I'll move through it really fast, but just to give you a little background, I've spent last 5 years of my life living in villages in the Himalayas and then visiting the Malaysian villages. So I have observed very closely that what the problems in ground are in realizing the SDGs. And I felt that working with just one village is not enough because we want to scale very fast. So we need something that can be, replicable across villages and cities really fast. Now I call this New Earth ecosystem because there's another thing that I realized while living in Bhutan is that we need a solution for organizing society better. And that is at the planetary level, not only at national level and at state level, but at planetary level. So that is why I call this New Earth ecosystem, and particularly it is for operationalizing well-being. And why I realized this in Bhutan is because Bhutan being one of the only carbon negative countries in the world, it's still facing the brunt of climate change, being at no fault, right? So the rest of the nations also need to coordinate their development better to be able to realize SDGs. So I'll talk about how we can operationalize this and how we can make the digital public infrastructure to do this. I'll really jump into the specifics and details of it. So the content of this is that why this ecosystem, which you have heard from Andrew and John. So I'll describe 5 pillars of this ecosystem, that what building blocks of this digital public infrastructure could look like, how it interacts with each other, and then what use cases can come out of it, how it can generate value at scale, what we did in Bhutan, and the path to impact that could be, maybe adopted for Malaysia for rapid validation and impact. So I think Andrew and John has talked about this, that we need to move away from GDP. I think the world has accepted that we need SDGs and well-being. Another problem is inefficient coordination, be it at provincial, national, or global level. It is opaque and inefficient right now. And third is that most of our development has been focused on cities. We have really neglected the villages, but half of the world's population still reside in villages, and especially in developing region is more than half. In India, it's about 70%, in Bhutan, it's about 90%, in Malaysia, I'm not sure about the number here, it's only my 4th time here, but I've not checked the statistics here, but I'm sure it would be at least 50% of the population residing in rural areas. So in past, generally how development would happen, that government would invest in physical infrastructure, right? We would create roads, we would create banks in the cities, we would create universities, right? And then we would create marketplaces in the cities. So we would physically cluster the resources, and that would lead to development of cities, and that would lead to the economic development of the people, not necessarily well-being of the people, but at least it would raise their income levels. What we are saying now is that in the digital age, we may not need to cluster resources physically. We can do this digitally. So whatever we used to cluster before physically, we can do this digitally. So how can we do this digitally? So there are 5 pillars to it. Number 1 is the National Digital Identity Framework. So generally when cities are made, people come together, and what it does is that the cost to network comes down, right? When we cluster people in the cities, for them to interact with each other, the cost of doing that comes down, right? Now, so the first pillar is that's why the digital identity network. I'll describe more in detail later on that what's the gap that we really want to fulfill there. Number 2 is data and decision making, which is basically the access to information. When people interact with each other, they share information with each other, right? And our economic development is basically based on how much information we can share and gather. It's directly correlated with that. Third is knowledge, right? In cities, if the youth, if they are able to access universities and are able to learn, then they grow really fast in the ecosystem. Fourth is access to finance, and fifth is access to marketplaces. So these are the 5 pillars that we can digitize now, and we can do it in a manner of digital public infrastructure, not in a relying on private players here, but building a shared network, which I'll describe later, a protocol through which those private players can also be connected together to become a public infrastructure. So this slide basically gives a summary, but I would like to go individually for each of these pillars. So let's start with the identity pillar, okay? So the problem with the identity pillar is that generally our networking platforms right now are owned by the private players, Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, Amazon, right? Amazon is much more of a marketplace, but Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn are the major players. But how many Kangpung people would you see on LinkedIn? You'd see many of them on Facebook, but very few on LinkedIn, right? And most of these networking infrastructure are not trusted because that's not linked to the national digital identities sometimes, right? And many people lack digital identities also. And I think this is easy because most countries have realized this and they have already started giving digital identities to their population, but there could be a layer that can be built on top of that that can allow people to network with each other. You can imagine a digital public infrastructure version of LinkedIn, especially curated for MSMEs and rural areas to do this. Okay, so, and what we need here is not only the digital identities for individuals, but also digital identities for organizations and ecological assets, and that's where the gap is. So Bhutan, for example, has not only started with issuing national digital identities for individuals, but it has also started issuing digital identities to organizations. And those are on a shared global protocol, which is called LEI number. Okay, so it's a standard, it follows a global standard, so it is interoperable across countries. And we need a similar protocol for digital identities for ecological assets also, which Bhutan has started with land tokenization, India has started with land tokenization, and we can do that for other digital assets as well. So it's built on 3 layers basically, for individuals, for organizations, and for ecological assets. Number 2 is data-driven One Earth balance sheet. So right now, why our policies are so fragmented and are not, delivering outcomes is basically most of our data is either aggregated at provincial level or at national level or at global level. But when we go to a village, there is no dashboard that shows, what's happening in this village, right? So if you want to design policies or if you want to deliver solutions to the villages, we really do not have a holistic picture. And there are NGOs and there are research institutes that are collecting data from these villages, but those are just in silos. Somebody would go and do just food data, somebody would go and do, maybe soil data, but they're not connected and shared on a common platform. So this made us realize that what if we start creating village level data dashboards, we can create a data architecture which is quite holistic, and that can come together then to become provincial, district, and planetary and national dashboards. So the result of this would be impact-based, evidence-based governance. The third is network knowledge. So again, I'd like to give one example here that we have got all the knowledge that we need to solve problems, because so many things are being tried at different places, as John mentioned, right? But these are not being converted right now into, actionable insights for common people on ground. How many villages in Malaysia have access, or farmers have access to, farming insights from the research institutes here in their hand? Nobody, I guess, very few. Maybe some private players are doing it, but that's again all fragmented. So how can we create a network, a knowledge network? So we started doing this in Bhutan, and we want to do this. The agencies there are very keen of doing this, is to create a One Bhutan knowledge network where we pull in all the research data, the knowledge material onto a common protocol and network, and that would plug in the AI as the knowledge base to give actionable insights to the people on ground. Okay. Fourth is a decentralized financial marketplace, or what we call global social stock exchange. Now again, in some of these villages where we were piloting the programs, their needs sometimes are just 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh, or here maybe it would be 10,000 ringgits, 20,000 ringgits, right? But most of the projects that provides funding for these villages are high value projects. They need high turnover. So how do we aggregate these projects together? And the cost for applying for any funding project right now is so high, because you have to meet different templates of different funding organizations. Maybe you'll have to create 10 proposals and just one will click, right? So we can create a digital public infrastructure where on one hand we have the supply of the projects, that is the need being identified from the data that we collect. On the other hand, we have the funders, which we can know from the organizational identities issued to them and data that we collect from them. And we can start matching the projects on a common protocol. And fifth is open network digital commerce. So again, this was an eye-opening initiative that India, started. And when I looked at it, I felt that this is the way to go forward. So India was suffering from this because most of our entrepreneurs are small and medium entrepreneurs. And Amazon and all of these big marketplaces would have monopoly in India. So they would change rules as per their whims, and these guys would need to, comply with that. And there was no way for them to switch these networks, basically. So India created open network digital commerce platform, which could allow all of these MSMEs to come on a shared network, which is based on a digital public infrastructure, to list their products and services, and this network is then accessed by the consumers. It could also allow financiers to plug in their financial products, insurance agents to plug in their insurance products, logistics agents to plug in their logistics services. So it really democratized the access and the marketplace in the country. So these are the 5 pillars that could be built digitally to do this as part of national infrastructure. So it's not 5 projects, but actually it is one integrated architecture. Now all of this, each pillar in isolation has been implemented successfully in many different countries, many different South African countries as well. But nobody has done this in an integrated manner so far. Nobody has clustered it together so far that it could create scale and could connect silos together to accelerate the change that we need. So it could become one network. It could become one Malaysia network where all of these 5 pillars are connected to each other. And it could then give, you a national intelligent, maybe a Malaysian AI that could guide policy and decision making at a national level as well, starting from village to national level. Okay. So now coming to how it functions, so what happens is that through identities, that is individuals, ecological assets, and organizations, we collect data. So we know where we are and what we have. We identify the gap because we know where we want to go. SDGs is where we want to go. The well-being indicators are there. That's where we want to go. So we identify the gaps. Then AI uses the knowledge pillar to generate trajectories. That is, it generates then actionable insights for each region, for each household, that how can we solve their problems, what is needed there. And then it empowers them through the marketplace and the finance. Okay, so this could all happen within one system if we get this foundational 5 pillars right. So, and then how it scales now from a national to global level. Okay, So the principle is that it is very fractal, okay? We do not, the whole ecosystem is owned by nobody. It works on a network, basically. I'll give an analogy after this. But this is how it can scale, that we start with city and village level networks, which can come together to become district, provincial, national, regional, and ultimately planetary network, where planetary intelligence could emerge. Okay, and how could we do this? Ultimately, the goal is to govern and coordinate transparently, that is ensuring food, energy, water, shelter, clothing, at least the basics are provisioned for all and within planetary and social boundaries. Okay. So the analogy of this is that you may know what HTTP did for internet, right? Before HTTP, there was intranets, and those were loosely placed, but HTTP connected them all together. So what we really need is a shared protocol, a shared identity protocol that can make digital identities interoperable across countries, a shared data architecture protocol that can make data interoperable across countries, a shared knowledge protocol that can make knowledge interoperable across countries, and shared marketplace protocol that can make marketplaces interoperable across countries. Now coming to the use case, there are various different use cases. I'll start first at the individual level, that how, what would be at the hand of a kampong person. So this is a view of an app that they could have. Every country could have its own version, so we are not here to make these apps for them, but we can only design the protocols and the interfaces, but every country can improvise and adopt it to their own context and culture. So what it gives to them is personalized AI advisory on how they can maximize their well-being, seamless access to services, which is knowledge, finance, and markets, community role matching, what roles they can play in their communities to fulfill the SDGs or the community needs, and secure digital identity, which I think most of them already have. So this is how this app could, in a basic format, could look like, where based on their data, the AI generates actionable insights for them and then connects them to knowledge, marketplace, finance, and the community roles. So if soil health is not proper for a farmer, it could generate that, the AI could generate actionable insights for them, that this is what you could do to improve your soil health. And that actionable insight can come from what another farmer in another kampong has done to achieve that. The second use case is at village level. So a village level dashboard could emerge, and a village officer could, then coordinate the policies and actions on the basis of the information that is gathered here. So again, AI can generate village level trajectories, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a 5-year trajectory or 10-year trajectory. It could also be a 15-year trajectory, and you can maybe generate 10 trajectories, and the villagers can choose which trajectory they want to take. Okay, and what actions needs to be prioritized, how could those be achieved, what resources are available, what knowledge is available to solve them. So this is another version of how a village level data dashboard can look like. Okay, it could show, we could track the progress of the trajectories, how well we are doing year by year. Okay. And the best thing is that right now with carbon credits, as we know that we need projects of a certain scale to be able to avail carbon credits, and it is actually an aggregation problem. So if we do this, we can aggregate projects across villages to empower them with carbon and nature-based credits, because right now they are stewarding it but without income. They are not getting the benefits out of it. But if we could cluster, and through the digital public infrastructure, if we can deliver them benefits, because this lowers down the cost very much, we can do it at scale really fast. This is at a national level, how a national level intelligence could emerge. So it could be a national dashboard where you can have the indicators tailored to your needs. And this all but comes from bottom up. So you can zoom in to the kampong and the household level. So when we say bottom up, it is actually a targeted approach of doing it. So in India, when they did this, so the direct benefit transfer system saved about 2.23 trillion rupees to the Indian government. And then we can have a global dashboard similarly, where we could see the global insights, how much progress we have made on SDGs globally, how much global carbon budget that we have. And this could be another view of the global dashboard, especially for development banks, where they can see how their projects are performing, how the countries are doing, and where their needs are for funding. So it's not that this doesn't have any, it's like a sink that the government invests in, but there are no returns to it. But it can become a self-sustaining ecosystem. So these are some of the ways through which it can become a self-sustaining ecosystem for the for the nation. One is that it would lead to massive government savings in how the policies are made and how the services are delivered. Number two, through consent-based data sharing. Number three, through network knowledge and licensing. There could be subscription fees. There could be market fees, which could be very less. So it could become a self-sustaining ecosystem on its own. Okay, so now how we did this in Bhutan is basically we took a phygital approach to devise the village level balance sheet. Okay, they already had the national digital identity in place. So the gaps were majorly in the data and the knowledge network. So we didn't work on the knowledge network so far, but we did work on the data issue, and we created a one village balance sheet to do this. And once they saw this balance sheet, they said that they want to do it for 600 villages immediately. Okay. So we use top-down, we combine the top-down digital data that are pulled through remote sensing and satellite technologies with bottom-up surveys. So what this does is unlocks value at scale, that is access to finance, knowledge, and marketplaces. And how can we start? Probably in Malaysia is rapid validation, that we start with few villages. I think the digital identity is in place for the individuals. We can start with the digital identities for organizations, ecological assets, and we can start with at least maybe 40 or 50 villages in Malaysia to pilot this immediately. And we would then know that how much it costs to scale here, what are the outcomes, and how can we suit this to Malaysian context. So yeah, this is just a summary that before invisible communities, after it become bankable ecosystems, before isolated projects, now it's investable portfolios, informal practices to verified ESG impact, no market access to global ethical supply chains, and unpaid stewardship to carbon and nature incomes for the communities. So outcome, the goal ultimately is essential provisions for all, and we can reimagine work and life balance, enhance governance, and ultimately create an omni-win future for humanity. Yeah, so I'll end here, and any questions, most welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So back to you. Wow. 1 hour, okay? Sorry.
No, I thought that's an interesting. So the Sekjen or KE is not here, but there's three other people here from Economic Ministry. So I should open up, but maybe I should just start by asking one. Back during the MCO, the people in Cameron Highlands, the ones growing vegetables, and so they were badly affected because the supply chain was disrupted because of the MCO. They don't allow lorries to move produce from the highlands to KL. But anyway, I got to know a bunch of flower people. The people who grow flowers. They're slightly on the lower end of the highlands, and they did okay because the flowers were all exported instead of supplying it to the Klang Valley here, and they developed an interesting and this is a proprietary thing, sort of like what you're saying, a platform, right? But this is like platform created by, I think they just use some. And they just go on the internet. They create a portal. Then so it was actually, their problem was actually it's actually a clearinghouse of information, right? They knew that the meteorological department has all kinds of data. They knew that their buyers, they were selling flowers to Japan. So apparently the the economy was open during MCO, largely open. So their demand side was fine. So anyway, they need to coordinate, amount of sunlight, humidity, markets, price, input price, logistics. So they created actually quite an interesting, like just a bunch of them, creating a portal and basically resolving this. When you were talking, I was just reminded of these guys because they exactly did the same thing, but on that scale, right? It's just a bunch of flower farmers trying to coordinate between themselves about inputs that are in residence somewhere else, but they don't want to, or they can't afford to actually put sensors and measure rainfall and temperatures, humidity, and so on, and prices and rates for not refrigerated. Some, how they need to bring down the temperature after harvesting, and so. But they just created a simple platform, I thought, and it worked. So I thought, when you were going on about on all these things, I thought that's a thing to do. But the problem, I think people from the economic ministry, the problem about aggregating data and putting in AI sort of smart thing on top of it is actually we have so many laws on know your customer, EKYC, PDPA. I am empowered legislatively to collect this data. I'm not empowered to share the data in this way. So that when you get to that level, then you come across all these barriers, right? So I don't know how the Roka Valley project, I don't know how did it, because to build it on a more formalized structure as a starting point is going to be very difficult. But then I was reminded by these flower guys, right? The flower guys actually sorted out their problems among them. There was little involvement of government, except they had to convince the meteorological department to share their data every day because they had all the data. So in the end, the meteorological department says, "Oh, thank you. Somebody wants to use my data." So they actually just shared with it. So there was no issue on PDPA, private. It was just made into a public access, public sort of a public good, right? So I don't know how. It's not just bottoms up and top down. It's also an issue of formal and informal, right? So I don't know what's the experience between, because formal stuff, when you get into the domain of government, they have laws and structures and.
Mike.
India did recently. So India introduced AgriStack. So what they did is basically they just introduced a set of protocols, a data architecture, and user interface design. And the Indian politics, right? Every state is fighting with each other, and for the center to coordinate each of the state on a common objective, it's very difficult. And it would know that if they knew that if they would come with a common, a product for all the states, there would be a lot of backlash. So what they did is that they said, okay, this is the protocol, this is the architecture, this is the user interface specification that we are giving to you. Now you innovate on your own, but these are the base minimum. This is just the basic minimum.
So basically an empowerment model.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get involved.
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm not getting involved.
Yeah.
But I'm giving you this, and I'm giving you some funds to do it. Then each state made their own apps based on those protocols, base minimum. They improvised, they added whatever they wanted to add. Some had, few issues that maybe we don't want this, but that was okay, acceptable, few trade-offs here and there. And within 1.5 years, 10 million farmers in India are onboarded on AgriStack.
Wow.
And they're given farmer IDs, which are digital IDs. The government has got their land details, the government has got their soil health details.
Wow.
Within 1.5 years for 10 million farmers across India.
Yeah.
So the trick is to basically.
Just give the base minimum, empower them. It's empowerment.
Empowerment, right?
Yeah, empowerment.
I just came back from Sabah. Just give an illustration, right? I live in Penang. Balik Pulau is the sort of center of the durian,
world,
right? Center of the durian, right? Kawasan, okay? So, as you know, kampung durian and the branded durian price is very different.
Yeah.
You know what this young entrepreneur did in Sabah? He planted Musang King, he planted this, the other, he planted. But if he were to sell to the dealer, he mati.
Yeah.
You and I know.
Yeah.
What did he do? He created his WhatsApp group. Okay? He tells everybody, tomorrow I will be at this, my food truck with my durian will be at this place. And this is my price. And everybody knows it's cheaper than everybody else. So by word of mouth, suddenly the WhatsApp group, now a few hundred. Okay? Everybody by word of mouth will go to that place to buy his durian. Right? And suddenly he cut out the middleman and he's got it already. So it's a simple empowerment. You know, we've already got this, right? So, you know, the simple technology, the same thing with fishing, right? I always say, you know, if you go out to sea and you catch a rainbow trout, you know, garupa, huh? You know how much is the restaurant price and how much is you buy at the wholesale price? You know what the problem is. So if you have the same WhatsApp, you know, application, you tell everybody, I've already caught, you know, the freshest tuna, the freshest company, just be at the market, be at the wharf to collect from me. No middleman, you create your own marketplace. That is the power of technology. Right? So actually, we are purpose-based. You have to design it at the kampong level and let the kampong learn how to play with this platform, and then eventually, you know, they raise their income, right? That's the whole issue. Okay? So, you know, we have the capacity now. In fact, our ID, our ID actually got a chip already.
Yeah.
Right? But actually, we do not allow applications to use that ID, you know, the e-wallet.
Yeah.
So that, you know, but nowadays it's completely possible.
Yeah.
Right? Increasingly now we use it for petrol, you know, right? And then for, you know, delivery of subsidies can go directly into the e-wallet.
Yeah.
Right? So all these ideas mean the more we empower digitally our youth, the more change will come faster.
Because there's some KE reps here. I think that, I mean, it's recorded anyway. I think what your former minister has a very interesting project, right? Which is actually the apa nama? What is it called? No, not Padu. But the funding of small apa? What was it called? Yeah. So that I thought that was some people sort of make fun of it, but I thought that was a fantastic program. The only problem with that program is actually it lacked the connectivity that we mentioned earlier. It's isolated, right? Actually, it empowered young people to enter into agriculture or food processing and stuff like that. So it was very good in and of itself, right? Yeah. But it didn't enjoy the network benefit. No, what it's a square. What is it? It's a square of the number of participants, right? Yeah. So it lacked that actually. If that program could be, I don't know, like you have a new minister now, that program could still be retained, but you can increase the number of participants, but you need this
Scale.
Overlay of the network. Then
network to scale.
Then the square thing will kick in, right?
Yeah. Right.
And then innovation and creativity, problem solving.
Networking unlocks the challenge of scale and pace.
Yeah. So
scale makes it easier and makes it faster.
Yeah. So
if you're networked.
So that's I think that's one of the weaknesses of this very successful program, but it's actually successful as an individual program, but it's not network. Therefore, the scale and pace that John mentioned didn't kick in, right? Yeah. So the solution is to actually put more money to get more
to network them.
Oh yeah, to do both, right?
Yeah,
To network them,
yeah.
to network them, and actually to have more points, right?
Yeah.
More points, and then link the points, right? Then in a way, you kind of more or less step back and you can see the failures and the success, the innovation taking place, right? Yeah. But the other thing about government is it has an aversion to failure, which is your point earlier. We need to fail.
That's right.
And, I had the same conversation I had the same conversation with the politicians in Glasgow. That they, all the time, whenever they set a target, it just becomes another stick to be hit with. But my point is they have an impossible challenge. If they try to do it, if they execute your policies in a top-down manner, you're doomed to failure. You cannot, you really is. I came as a surprise to me. So then I looked for the evidence of success of policies in the UK, and only 5% of policies in the UK are ever evaluated. We don't look to know if the policies work or not. So policies, top-down command and control mindset is doomed to failure. Yeah. But top-down empowerment of bottom-up is the only way, and learn by doing is the only way. In other words, you will make mistakes, but the mistakes are not mistakes because you couldn't have anticipated it. You just tried something. So long as you try and you learn, you will get better.
That's right. We had this conversation, I was somehow on this panel, whatever, and then there was a Prime Minister and all these JLCs, whatever thing. Then they were talking about the GLICs funding new businesses and all these things. So I said, and then my benefactors, I can't say much, but my benefactor is involved. So, and I said, oh my God, Khazanah is really the wrong entity to be doing this taking risks with small initiatives, because the rate of failure will be a lot higher than success. And then when your chairman is the Prime Minister, the aversion to failure is even worse because the Prime Minister is not supposed to fail, right? Then, but the entity that he's chairing is supposed to take risks and fail and learn. So that's one of the, I think, anomalies of this thing because then you go to Parliament and you do reports at the end of the year. You have to tell the story of how much was expended, how many participants, how much sales they generated, right? But we know for the last how many years, 50, 60 years, that mechanism has failed, right? Yeah. But we keep doing it because we need to answer to audit and things like that. So I think that's one of the contradictions.
This is why new technology and the equity market, this is why I'm a great believer in the potential of Islamic finance. Islamic finance is all about equity, okay?
Not lending.
Right? No, not lending. Lending, lending can only, you see, we realize that lending is actually what's causing climate change because we're borrowing from the future to spend sekarang. Okay? And then, what is the standard credit banking model? 10% of SMEs fail. Therefore, you must charge them 10% risk premium. Mati, the more you charge, the more they fail, the more you charge, they die faster. Right? What is the Silicon Valley model? The Silicon Valley statistically is very, very, very good. 2.5% if you invest 1,000 in $1,000 in 1,000 small startups, 2.5% has a chance of making a unicorn. If you make $1 billion on a unicorn, I don't care about the 99% failure. So the failure is the ground path to success. You cannot have success without failure. Yeah. But every agency is fear of
failure.
Failure.
Yeah.
Okay? So, when I was in Hong Kong, I was never afraid of Singapore. Because Singapore, they're kiasu, they're scared of failure. In Hong Kong, you fail. Because if you fail, you succeed. You see, two things I learned in Hong Kong, okay? A lot of people don't realize this, right? But unfortunately, that part Singapore learned. When I was chairman of the Security and Futures Commission in Hong Kong, all these Chinese fellas will go and come and list. They come and see me. I said, what do you come and see me for? He said, in China, we must go and see the chairman.
See the boss.
But the regulator, right? I said, in Hong Kong, you don't need to see me. You only see me if you're in trouble. Okay? But I'm the policeman. If you see me, you're in trouble. You're really in deep trouble. So actually, if you don't see the regulator, it's better for the market.
Yeah.
Because if they follow the rule,
Yeah.
if they have a problem, they go to the courts, right?
Yeah.
And if we catch them, there's no such thing as, I took a selfie with the chairman, right? And by the way, I gave a bottle of brandy to the chairman, right? I prefer not to see them.
Yeah.
But that's where the intervention comes in, you see?
Yeah.
So the result is that, one of the reasons why EU has problems changing is because they write the rule in anticipation of problems.
Yeah. Actually,
But as John says, you actually don't know where the problem comes from. The rule itself becomes the problem.
Yeah.
actually, that quote just now, the one that John cited from somebody, right?
Oh, yeah.
That quote is actually the right thing. He says, "What
So it's basically, if you want to know how a complex system will behave if you change it, the only way is to change it and see what happens.
I think that's a fantastic quote, right? But okay, any other sharing of questions? I was just poking at KE lah just now. I thought no, because I really thought refugees program on empowering young people to do things was very entrepreneurial. It was successful, but it wasn't networked, so it did not benefit from the pace and the pace and the scalability, right? And therefore it didn't generate innovation and creativity within that, because it's too isolated, it's too standalone. I don't know. So just throwing it to KE. I thought then maybe you should start looking at this Sabah thing and try something.
Right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon, Tan Sri Andrew, Dr. Nungsari, colleagues, John, welcome to Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Asfazam from National SDG Center, the Ministry of Economy. I'm trying to translate the terms that you usually use, Pusat SG Negara. I mean, a few comments and also a question. But I think I just start with the first question. I would like to know what has been done in Nabawan that actually been using this GIOAS apps and method, and how's the lessons learned. But I just continue with my comments. I think we're talking about SDG is not just the environment per se that we are looking at. I think we all understand that. It's not just the soil, it's not environment or climate change. It's also looking into the whole ecosystem, poverty and all that. And number two, I mean, as much as possible from the Department of Statistics Malaysia, although at national level we have been doing great in terms of data collection, about 87% that data is available at this juncture. If you want to compare this with many other countries, Malaysia is actually quite okay in terms of. But if you're looking to local data, the local data is the one that require further improvements.
That's true.
It's around 37%, not even less than 40%, and even this is where if you want to get things done, you need to really measure that properly, right? We have been listening to this mantra for many years. But that's what the government is trying to do, and some data is really not available simply because of geography situation. The system sometimes is not available, and sometimes it's also subject to those kind of regulation that Datuk said lah. If you want to get proper data, the privacy issues and all that needs to be resolved collectively. I think the third one, just a comment. I think from the government side, they understand about this innovation, scaling up, doing small things at then this aggregated level, and trying to get that aggregated level done as best possible. And this is where the idea of like progressive wage. We want to go into those big policies. Some companies have to really pilot that first. IPR, as Dato has been mentioning. So what needs to be done now is actually lessons learned, collective approach, monitoring and evaluation concept, and then trying to really look at what has been done so far, and then try to correct that at the policy level. And then on a small scale project, just to also share, especially with respect to SDG implementation, there are some other entities that have already been doing quite a number of SDG small projects. I put it that way lah. So among them is Yayasan My SDG under the purview of Ministry of Finance. I think they have like nearly 20 plus projects, especially looking into those projects which is very sensitive, undocumented people, and all vulnerable communities and all that in Sabah and Sarawak. The other entity is actually APPGM, All Party Parliamentary Groups within the Parliament umbrella. So now they are working with 143 parliamentarians in 143 constituencies, and almost like 1,000 solutions already on the ground. Land degradation, you name it, land degradation, organic farming, climate change monitoring and all that. And then the other one is with GLC and GLIC, Kazana also included, is also the GDRN, Gabungan Rakyat Demi Negara, where they are actually doing CSR project as well as a small scale project to support the vulnerable communities, orang asli and all that. So what I'm trying to say is the other one is Innovaton by Ministry of Economy. You know, they have this TV program encouraging the youth to come out with solutions and all that. Yeah, of course there are some comments on it, but nonetheless things is already in third season now. It's getting, I think people are learning about it. They're encouraging youngsters to come in and develop projects, especially to find solutions on SDG at the local level. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that I mean, it's good to know. We will love to see how this thing is being implemented. The small scale idea is actually very interesting. Fully agree. From the small scale, we should then be learning about the mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, then end of the day, we are trying to look at it at aggregated level, and hopefully those will then be able to resolve policy at the really at macro level. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. I just need to know what in Sabah. What we have been doing in Sabah for this.
In Sabah, I mean, since past 4 years, as you know, Tanshi mentioned that the politics was complex, so we didn't really pilot these apps, and it was more sort of in development as well. So we went to Bhutan. So we did this in Bhutan, and we've got the whole data architecture in place, which is open for review, and we'll share it soon, you know. And so this was just an overview, but behind this there's 112 slides more, you know, which goes into details of each of these pillars and the data architecture, the AI logics and algorithms, and furthermore, and then there's this whole document and making to document all of this. But we did collect data. I mean, we can't connect right now, but I could show you the live dashboard of Ruka, where we did collect data on the demographics, poverty, well-being, spirituality, environment, and everything in one place. But we compiled those then into 7 spheres of well-being, which is environment, physical, then social, emotional, occupational, intellectual, and spiritual. So it gives a data dashboard in those 7 spheres. And then wherever the gaps are, like if it's food security, water security, mental health challenges, social inequality, it just shows on the dashboard, and what actions could be then taken to solve those. So we are hopeful that this year we can pilot this in Sabah, and then we can say, yeah.
Actually, I mean, 2 years ago when I came, it became very clear the first time I went to the grassroots level. This is Sabah's state federal track. Yang ini, federal. Don't talk to me. I cannot deal with this problem. I'm not going to fly to KL to go and beg or whatever it is to get this, right? And this one is a state issue. And the state issue, you know, this one belongs to Nabawan, that one belongs to, you know, the other area, not my area, right? Anything to do with education, cannot touch. You must get permission from Ministry of Education. I cannot even visit the school. You know that, right? Outsiders cannot visit the school. You know? How to understand about education without going to the school? You know, right? So when you start hearing all this, I said, cannot work. Now that the election is over, state government is trying to do something.
Yeah.
Right? State government is having discussions with federal to do something. Everybody wants to do something. Federal wants to give something to Sabah. Sabah people want to give something to people. Now they're more open-minded. I mean, put it this way. Okay? So, but in those 3 years, we didn't, waste our time in the sense we went to Bhutan and then went on the ground to see this issue. Now in Bhutan, this is every place has their own, problems and solutions. The good news about Bhutan is that because it is basically one religion and basically one king, right? And basically the king is very much in touch with the people, and he was the one who evolved gross national happiness. His problem is his ministries and all this are trained by the West and therefore GDP oriented. Okay? And then how do you deliver GNH? Because they say, yeah, GNH, but very, very nebulous lah,
Fluffy lah.
Right. Fluffy lah, right? And then how do you deliver the jobs? Okay? So then suddenly they realize this is a holistic issue. It cannot be solved by one ministry. Right? So, so that's why they said, okay, if you try to pilot this database project, we can do this for different villages. Try, pilot, experiment, concept, proof of concept, scale. So that's the stage we are in. And, my point is, just to give you an illustration of the problems that we had. When I went to Sabah, I clearly realized we need money. We need money to do this. Now, there are plenty of foundations in the world that have got money. So I happen to know, the current chairman of Temasek Foundation. Okay? And I went to see her personally. I said, would you be interested in this? Oh, yes, absolutely. He got the staff all there. But my minimum project size is 30 million Sing. 30 million Sing is 100 million ringgit, Now, when I'm going to the kampong, how much do they need? Building the bridge, 50,000 ringgit. Clearing the drain, 10,000 ringgit. I would now have to scale all these projects across different kampong in order to apply for the grant.
You're too cheap.
I'm too cheap lah. You see my problem? Right? You see, if I can get somebody like a foundation in Singapore, to donate, I then try to get some corporate to donate, right? Private money is involved, and if the private project succeeds, then we can bring the government in lah. Right? But if I went straight to the government would look at me, hey, you're trying to get something ah? You want to get land from me? You want to get, franchise from me? I said, I don't want to do this. I just want to see this grassroots project succeed. Okay? This is the issue that we face. So suddenly I face, my goodness, there's so many ministries involved, I cannot get involved because I'll get killed. Right? So now, now that the timing is right, the state is very keen on doing something, and the state has now very good relations with federal to do something, then I think we can hopefully push this as a pilot lah. But it actually, once the data in Bhutan works, you see, we can then borrow that information and apply it there. We're trying to borrow the experience in the United Kingdom and put it there. Actually, some of these things Indonesia is doing. India is definitely doing it. India is definitely doing it. The Chinese have done it. Yeah. The Amazon people have done it. But they're not connected. You see, this is what I feel about why the multilateral system doesn't work, right? They have one size fit all, and they give you the big SDG. I was part of the Rockefeller Center, 17 rooms, and I keep on telling the Rockefeller fellows, you don't realize this is so interconnected. How can you look at it in 17 goals, right? And even Rockefeller Center now realizes they cannot deliver, right? We know this. So, my view is bottom up. We cannot solve the complex system on our own. Let, different kampung try,
Yeah.
and if it succeeds, then we go and scale that what works.
But that's where the bit about linking, right? About
Yeah.
linking, and I think then maybe the work with Kementerian Digital, the use of
cooperation from other ministries as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah
KDW, there's state government.
yeah, because there's no shortage of money because I'm just looking at MCMC. MCMC has this universal service. The amount of they actually impose a cess or something on the industry players. They're supposed to be about reducing the digital divide and empowering minorities. So actually, I think to get funding to roll out
Infrastructure.
just to create I think there was actually I went to Pulau Bidong, the one that the Vietnamese refugees back in the 70s, and so but that one was taken over by UMT, University Malaysia Terengganu. So the whole turtle apa benda nursery thing is there, but it was so crazy because the UMT students had to go to stay at where the turtles come,
Right.
and it's on the other side of the island facing the south, not the one facing. But there's no internet and no line, no line.
Yeah.
And then the only way to communicate between the bunch of students staying on the island remotely and the campus is actually through satellite phones,
Yeah,
which is
that's right.
ridiculously
That's
expensive.
right. Exactly.
So in the end, actually, they got funding from that fund, that whatever MCMC fund, to just install what do you call it?
Tower.
Booster or something like
Booster
that.
tower. Yeah.
And then it actually create access
Yeah.
to the other side.
Yeah.
But then it opens up possibilities for other things,
Yeah.
not just to connect
That's right.
the students to the
right.
campus on the mainland. So I thought, once you have the digital
That's
infrastructure,
the network infrastructure.
then you can
lah.
build something
Then you
on
can
it, right?
build.
Yeah.
You see, that was the problem we faced in Nabawan, right? We went down there. I assumed the internet exists. They said, I'm sorry. To get to the internet, I traveled 2 hours to Keningau to get the internet. I said, Martina,
near
the
Keningau
digital cannot work.
Keningau.
So
Now not
then I
Keningau.
went to the kampung and I saw these huge Astro dishes. So I said, Astro memang ada internet kan? Oh, I had to go to Astro themselves to find out they do not provide Wi-Fi internet services for Sabah because no market.
Yeah lah.
Okay? So now, only recently, this trip, we went down, ada internet. Kenapa ada internet? Somebody subsidized Starlink.
Oh, Starlink.
Starlink! You see, these are very basics, right? They are basic infrastructure. If these basic infrastructure don't work, you cannot use digitization.
But Semenanjung should not be any problem.
Yeah, Semenanjung, no problem. What?
Huh? There's no place in Semenanjung that's
Yeah,
not.
that's right.
That's not.
That's right.
Sabah Sarawak is a big issue.
It's a big issue.
Yeah.
And because Sabah Sarawak, physical infrastructure is very expensive, the digital infrastructure actually can reach them faster.
That's the India
Yeah.
shortcut.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And I would just like to share one experience when we were doing this in Bhutan, and I agree with you that a lot of different NGOs are doing a lot of things on ground. So when I was personally there when we were piloting this, collecting data from the root. So one team came on the kind of fish the kampung people there are eating. Then one team came from UNDP to collect data on the fish ponds that could be, planted there. And then after we did the data collection, I went back to the foundation, and the World Food Program had collaborated with the foundation I was working with in Bhutan for the nutritional assessment, which is called the Breska project. And they were to do this assessment for about 700 to 800 villages in Bhutan. So their team went again to the village to do this nutritional assessment. And I would just like to show, this document. This is how they collected data. Can you believe this? This is how they collected data.
Oh my God.
all handwritten, and you can see the stamps here, the stamp of UN's World Food Program, the government stamp, and the foundation stamp. How do you imagine this data to be analyzed? And just imagine the waste of money for sending these teams to the village, and all of these organizations collecting so much data but not sharing on a shared platform.
So maybe that's the thing. The other thing is actually, even in places where they are the internet, in that sense, digital infrastructure is not the issue. Platform is actually the platform is an issue, right? I don't think I agree with you, lah. Yeah, I don't, no need to use all this the existing. I think we could model it after what you mentioned. Actually, create the access is there, the wireless is there, it's fast enough, but we just need to build communities around common things, right? And then to get the effect of the exponential, the scale and the pace thing, because I think really that one interministerial lah, digital, luar bandar, KE of course lah. So I think maybe to program something like that. But you, like you mentioned, dah ada dah kan? You already have quite a bit of that.
Yeah, I'm sure if there is something really in interest of Ministry Economy, I'm sure there will be some efforts to organize it, either through DE money, development expenditure money, or support to the state government and all that.
Tapi macam Tan Sri said earlier, I think some of these things, money is the secondary issue in a sense.
Money is the secondary issue.
Money is the secondary issue. It's actually the solutioning to build a community. I think it's actually one of those difficult issues.
Yeah.
I think to build individuals, quote unquote, projects, actually one level of difficulty. The next level of difficulty is actually to build an infrastructure that covers them, right? That's the bit that sometimes is missing. I think Putrajaya has become less. Sorry lah, government servant marah. Putrajaya has become less in sense of one size fit all lah. And Putrajaya doesn't have the attitude. Anything that's you have a problem, we design a solution, we apply it from Perlis to Sabah. That I think those days are over. But the experimentation of bottoms up requires a change of many things, change of processes, change of mindset, change of laws, change. That is the challenge, I think. I think that's why it's as much about change of the status quo as it is about creating change on the ground. So that's the difficult bit. But that's why I think starting small is actually a good thing, because lah, when your boss tanya what happened, you can say lah, we did this project, whatever, it's a success. It's like the metaphor is like, penalty pun tak apa lah. You can, as long as it's a goal, it's penalty, free kick is fine. You don't have to do a messy. So I think that's why I think scale, the sharp end of the intervention should be small. Then if it's linked, then you get this, you get the pace and the scale, right? So starting small is actually quite a crucial thing. Because you need to show success. You start 1,000 small. Maybe not quite 2.5% lah. Maybe whatever, 10.
Whatever percent, 10%. 10% would be very good achievement.
And then the boss can sell the story. Then okay lah. I think the problem sometimes, government, they want to start big. That's when it becomes a problem. You start big because I think that's where underestimating all kinds of logistical resource requirements to do things at scale, as opposed to let scale be endogenized lah. You let scale become a thing.
It should emerge organically.
It should be So it should be organic, and the endogenous, the changes within that in itself creates the scale. So government comes and sort of feed the thing rather than
Yeah.
create a big thing.
Yeah.
But that's a change in mindset lah. I don't know.
Thank you, Dato' and Tan Sri. My name is Azral from Ministry of Economy. I'm coming from Environmental and Natural Resources Division. So perhaps I don't have the mandate to comment on this IPR thingy. Yeah. I think this is just for the discussion. I think more into academic discussion. I think the Sabah issue on the I think the less or low income as a low income state is not new. It's been prolonged for so long, more than the. I see. So,
You know why the election is happening? Very simple.
but again, the money, the funding, the projects, all those things is I think everyone, every level has been pushing into developing Sabah into more higher income states. However, I think in the past kita tak nampak any improvement. I mean, I'm just sharing. I did my PhD in resource revenue governance, and Sabah is one of my case study. My concern is basically they do have additional revenue through oil royalty, but again, how they still in the low income states as compared to their counterpart Sarawak. Sarawak, even though memang sebelum ni dah low income, but they have moved to the high income states, and not only Sabah but also Terengganu. Again, Sabah has so many potential, but they are very unique. In the sense that one of the findings that I suggest in the thesis is basically on we do permit. There is an oil royalty transfer, but again there is no tracking or monitoring. How actually once the oil royalty come in, they treated it in the accounting system as the revenue. So bila dalam revenue dalam government punya accounting system, so once it's transferred, so that is up to the state how to. Yes, consolidated. No, dia panggil apa? State punya consolidated fund. But again, there is no such thing. Orang kata apa? Responsibility or untuk monitor or tracking where does the fund go for spending. Yalah, it's up to the government actually nak fund for to hire more government servant ke ataupun more projects, but rather than go to development. Sebab I went there and then I was surprised macam I tengok after within the vicinity of the KK to itself, jalan pun still sangat teruk. I'm so surprised, I'm so shocked, and I'm itulah nampak macam that shouldn't be the case lah for Sabah especially. So okay, one thing there is from the accounting system, again from the capacity, we should develop the capacity lah, subnational capacity, especially yang mana yang what do you call it, do the managing, do the projects already. It's not about the money. I think it's about the capacity at the states level. Sebab at federal we are proud of kita ada capacity, we manage our fund well, but again bila go to dia punya tu tak ada.
But Sabah, unlike say Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu, and
Sabah has their own state service.
oh, they have state
Yeah,
service.
Sabah civil service. Yeah, dia sama Sabah, Sarawak, Kelantan, Terengganu dia. Campur unfederated Malay states, campur Sabah, Sarawak, dia ada sendiri.
Federated Malay, Sabah and Sarawak is like the unfederated Malay states. So
Cuma tu lah, Sabah has
capacity issue.
so many potential.
Why is there a capacity issue? Because there are many races in Sabah. Right? And so when you have a democratic system, you divide. And so the Pan-Borneo Highway is built, this is good, this part is not good. So you go down very fast, 5 minutes, then you go into country lane, then you go to the other one, given a very bad contract, so plenty of potholes, right? And then, certain part is federal. So you, in one stretch, why is KK bad? Because certain roads are federal and certain roads are state.
Yeah.
So if I build the state road and the federal road is, may or may not be maintained, or the state road not maintained, both sides kena. Right?
Betul.
The people don't care.
Yeah. So you really need to design the system for the local conditions. Let me give an illustration, right? We were visiting a palm oil estate. They told us this road is actually a state road. But, supposed the state to maintain, but state got no money. Okay? And then I, as a palm oil estate, I would like to get this road done. But the logging truck from somebody else come in, excess weight, they destroy it. They have no incentive because they can overload the truck, you see. But if this is my road, I want to do it. So can we now devise a system whereby you allow the estate to maintain that road and give them a toll? And then at least somebody enforces that the timber truck
timber
cannot
truck,
go.
not
And in fact, the timber trucks are doing illegal stuff. You and I know this. The illegal logging, right? So we all have to devise systems that fit the local condition now. And actually, I can see this. Is this each other blaming each other? I mean, the Sabahan will blame the federal blame the local. So ultimately, it's a collective action trap, right? But it's not here to blame anybody. We have to solve the problem. So what I'm saying is that you delegate down below, and let the grassroots handle the problems. But do it as a pilot to see whether it works. If it doesn't work, then we try something else. I mean, that's the issue.
But Doc's point is actually one is the resource. I think Sabah and Terengganu are
The resource-rich and low-income.
fantastic examples of resource-rich states that are poor.
Yeah.
And apart from the issue of governance, he's saying issue of capabilities.
Exactly, yeah.
Capabilities.
But you see,
I mean, there's no so now if Kelantan wants to get their share of oil revenue, it will probably be the same lah.
They have so many potential. I can say that. I mean, like Sabah. I mean, with the new cooperation with Petronas and all sorts of things. But again, come back to do they have the capacity how to handle things? But that is probably another discussion altogether. But again, just to respond to John, I think on the learning by doing, something that I learned. I was in UK masa COVID too. So I saw them struggle juga masa to come up with all this setup, what do you call it, for the vaccination, everything.
Oh, in UK?
In the UK, yeah, for the first few months. And then when I heard in Malaysia, when the vaccine just came in, and then there is also a lot of struggle and then complaining from the Malaysian citizen and everything. So when I did compare with the UK experience, actually we did okay actually. Learning by doing, because there is a pressure, and then I think within a few months the KKM keep on changing, and we have, I think, same goes to UK. Rather than have to go like 30 kilometers to drive to get just to check, and then I just move to, I mean, just go like 10 minutes drive away, just to check my this one for the COVID thingy. So it eventually progressively improve. So that is learning by doing. I think Malaysia also has that kind of experience, which is, I think, very good. Again, for the Sabah, I mean, there is a lot of potential again. Cuma they're very unique and we have to address. Again, dia memang ada banyak, very diverse. That is another thing yang Sabah punya historical punya ni lah. That has been institutionalized dalam Sabah punya governance. That is to address locally. I agree with you. In fact, they also claim dalam 1 kilometer tu ialah 10 dalam I think like 10 kilometer okey, 10 kilometer tak okey, 10 kilometer tu okey.
Exactly, that's the issue.
I don't know, maybe kita nak bagi different contractors to get this one, but again, there is no quality control. I mean, again, back to monitoring dengan ni lah. So,
but the other side, the Sarawak.
Yes, they I mean, they have moved a lot. I mean, sebab one thing dia punya structure. I think one of the historical punya from Sarawak is I think this is just from the discussion. I mean, I did interviews with locals. So they kata Sarawakian is they got this governance structure capacity from, they have this Raja, what do you call it, Raja Sarawak,
the Raja Council.
Raja Council everything. So they dah embedded dalam Sarawakian ni. Compared to Sabah basically is administered by a company.
That's right.
When a company, they
That's
just
a historical
extract.
problem.
North Borneo.
The company just basically was trying to divide and rule.
Oh.
So it's a very different
Good
story.
point lah.
So
Institutionally,
they extract and then they leave it.
Yeah.
The locals.
Yeah.
So itulah, I mean PT our Sabah lah kan. But again that is again local punya situation context, and happy to share lah later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other interventions? Any other sharing of questions? Yes.
Hi, thanks Sri Andrew dengan Dr. Nungsari. I'm Hasana from Islamic Finance Department, Bank Negara. Thanks to Tan Sri for your strong support of Islamic finance.
Equity.
I would like to consider myself as from the young generation, but listening to the sessions, immediately in the current operating, I also have a lots of things to vision on how to realize this into practical strategies lah. One thing that I would like to comment, Tan Sri, I know you advocate for bottom-up approach, let kampung-kampung pilot with their solutions, but I guess where the government or central body normally looks like on solutioning a centralized solution, a big solution is because eventually in the long term, the connectivity and interoperability matters for efficiency. So I'll just like to share some real example. You mentioned about e-wallet integration with subsidy benefits by the government, right? So I was in the payment industry before this for quite some time. In the past, Malaysia used to have more than 40 e-money e-wallet operators lah. So if you go to some food courts in the mall, they ask you to reload their cards in order to pay at the food court.
Yeah.
If you go to some shopping malls, you have to reload one utama card.
Yeah.
So many apps, so many. If you go to some states, Kuching, Sarawak, you have to install Sarawak Pay.
That's right.
So one could have more than 5 e-wallets, and then you have, if you travel to some other countries, you also need to install some, say, Touch and Go wallet to connect with Alipay there, right? So Bank Negara sees that fragmentation in the market, and we actually work closely with the industry to force them to integrate, talk to each other.
Yeah.
But it's a long journey, and I felt like we can feel the impact now. So if you settle, you can actually transfer to banks as well nowadays, if they are part of the same platform. So during the early stage, convincing the stakeholders was really tricky. So the banks were perceiving e-money as their competitors. Why are you forcing me to be on the same platform as e-wallet? So I have owned this platform for so many years. Now you are allowing them to access the same platform as mine. So we took a lot of advocacy. We tell them that integrating at infra level is for the greater goods. You can compete at service level, but not at infra level. Infra level, you must be together. So
Which is
up
actually
to
India punya, the Indian example.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Service level compete lah.
Yeah, exactly. So different user experience, different interface. I like this e-wallet more than some banks apps. That's up to them. But at the infra, you must be connected to each other. So again, I can foresee this in the long term. If each small players coming up with their own solution, eventually some integration needs to be thought after.
Sure.
So yeah. And I just want to comment to Dr. Nungsari. You said that money is not really a problem. Okay.
Sorry?
Again, in my simple thinking, I don't know. Open data sharing is one thing. But the data collection itself, I imagine it as a resource-intensive process. So, Sana, you mentioned about some people actually collect the data manually. So, when it comes to environment data, for example, you probably need sensors to be installed underground to monitor the mineral levels, the sustainability indicators, whatever lah. In the case of financial sector, it's easier because we have the systems. So, it's electronic already, it's digital already. So, it's auto. But it comes to broader parts of the economy like environment. How do we collect the data? Do you imagine people fill in the data and key in the system manually? I imagine it will be a blended lah of manual data keying and some technology, could be sensors. So all this require money or resources again. So like I said, I'm from young generation, but to me, it's a very complicated process already lah.
Okay, she's a regulator.
No. You know, the problem with SMEs
on
or
your
the
board,
small people, right? Yeah, right? Is the ancient mariner's problem. Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. There's no shortage of money in the world, right? You know, money is everywhere, except that when I need it, nobody's willing to lend to me or willing to invest in me. Okay? So the result is, and the way the systems are done, is that transactions cost for me as a small chap to go and apply for this loan or grant is very high. And you can only reduce that transactions cost through digitization. And now everybody's got smartphones, more or less. You know, if the internet works, technically speaking, you should be able to get that funding or whatever faster, right? Faster. The issue is that we cannot predict, you know, so you have to have certain rules. This is what Sneha's discovered. Originally, we thought it was just an app. But actually, it is not an app. The whole stack of standards, protocols, applications, platform, identity, all this have to be built.
Yeah,
And you cannot expect the small guy to do it.
yes,
It has to be the digital public infrastructure. But if the digital infrastructure provides everything, it'll be very expensive. So the way the Indians did it, they, you know, frankly speaking, the Indians also have fiscal budget problems. But they design the protocols, they design the standards, right? And then that way, they say, if you want to build your e-wallet, go and build it yourself, but you must follow this protocol. And that's the regulation that the Bank Negara can impose.
Tan Sri, if I may continue from your comment, it's real what you said, because going back to my example about the integration of e-wallet and banking services, so the integration is onto a common platform. We call it retail payments platform, operated by PayNet, right?
Right.
So Bank Negara actually imposes certain time, not Bank Negara lah, PayNet as the operator imposes certain timeline. So if you want to onboard into this platform, you must do so by certain dates.
Yes.
So all these players are actually competing for the same IT tech providers.
That's right.
Please revamp my system so that I can talk to the platform. And there's like concentration risk, chasing for the same procurement. I mean, it's bottleneck process because everyone to comply with the timeline. So again, it looks romantic or like, but in practical, you have limited service providers that can actually do the same protocols for the system to talk to each other. And I think in the case of financial sector, we have lots of examples to draw lessons from. For example, the ISO 20022 migration worldwide. So if you are using SWIFT, you want to talk to each other cross-border, then you need to have some staggered approach because the providers are limited. Not many companies can actually arrange your legacy system so that you can talk to each other seamlessly. So it is really a legit comment, Tan Sri.
No. I see where you come. You know, the issue. You see, the problem with these e-wallet guys, they all want to corner of the market in order for them to extract the value. Okay? But actually, what we really should be thinking about is does the customer benefit or not? Right? And that, you know, from a regulatory perspective, is where it matters. Because if it does not benefit ultimately the customer, that e-wallet will not survive. If it cannot scale, it will not survive. So what they're trying to do is to use you, to force you to give them the scale. You know, I'm not, you know, but actually the real business model of these small e-wallet guys, fintech guys, is no longer to reach scale. They just reach sufficient scale to persuade Grab to buy them up.
That's a business model.
That's a business model. You see, you have to understand where they're coming from. But the key question is Grab, I'm not trying to criticize Grab, right? But is Grab's model the best for Malaysia is also open for discussion now, right? Because at the present moment, there is a war, as you know, and the poor gig drivers are the ones who are suffering now, right? Because every time they need the profits, they reduce increase the commission, you know, and so you end up with, you know, many yeah, it is a problem. I mean, I can understand the problems of the regulators, but for the kampong side, really the issue is, you know, if we get the digital public infrastructure done, then actually the small guys in the kampong, who have a lot of time, can actually do digital work that never thought of. There was a website in Africa that was teaching that the women in the kampong, the village, were teaching the AI machine how to recognize that this is a mouse. Right? Because, you know, teaching the machine to recognize, of course, today it's already obsolete, right? But at that particular point of time, it was very expensive because, you know, if you just draw what looks like a mouse, does the machine recognize it's a mouse or not? Right? And then so you have to put in many pictures into the machine to say that is a mouse, but that happens to be a cat. Now, how does the machine know the difference between a cat or a mouse? So somebody has to teach it, right? So, you know, because labor in the West is very expensive, so they farm it out to Africans to do it. And you know what? They were doing this on the mobile phone, and they were paid by how many hours they spent on it, and they got income that was never there before. So there are many areas where we can encourage our youth to do work that we never dreamt was possible. Now, as you all know, today, if you are an influencer, you can make millions, you know. And what does it take to be an influencer? Talent. That's all it is. One mobile phone, you know, some setup, and a good story, right?
I put my airport hat on. I don't like influencers.
Yeah.
No, but
actually,
since
yeah, this
you guys
issue.
are having this conversation, I'm asking, what's wrong with the taxation system? So you're advocating zakat is by percentage. It's a lot smaller than tax.
That's right.
Income tax or even corporate tax for SMEs, what, 15%?
Yeah.
For larger companies, 24%. So what's the failure of the taxation system? I mean, basically we're saying what's wrong with the whole fiscal thing lah. We have taxation, we have whatever lah, representation, taxation with representation, budget, whatnot. But how did that go wrong? How did that whole taxation model? Just now, the gentleman from KE said, you know, the resource curse in a place like Sabah is actually you got money coming in, but it's a fiscal system that actually doesn't have accountability. You don't know where it's spent. So what's wrong with fiscal side? Since there's nobody from MOF, so we can speak.
Well, fiscal federalism is one of the most complex area, right? One of the most complex area. And I realized that actually Malaysia, as far as I know, because I'm not the expert on this area, Malaysia does not have a system like the Indian one, whereby there is every 10 years, there is a finance commission that decides the split between the state and the federal. Every 10 years, they rediscuss this. Because, you know, it's like, you know, if I decide under a standard rule, okay, that you get this, you get this, you get this, you get this, 10 years later, within one family,
Population.
you know, one child actually becomes a billionaire and the other one is very poor. Do I still give them 1/10 of the rich guy, 1/10 of the... Sorry, obviously not. You have to redesign the system, right? And the problem, as you all know, is that there is a fiscal curse, which is that if you take the centralized income tax, customs duty, you know, etc., the local guys will overdevelop the land-based taxation.
Okay. Yeah. In order to align the.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in a sense, I mean, the simple classic case is why China got into trouble. What? China got into trouble because they learned the Singapore system, right? Oh, you develop the land, you attract the industry, you develop the land,
Then I can
you sell the land, your land revenue can then be invested in the infrastructure, right? But then suddenly the land price goes up. Wow, I'm so happy, And then suddenly the real estate collapses. Your banking system is in trouble. Your state budget is in trouble, right? And suddenly you have a systemic problem that you didn't understand. The Singaporeans, when they taught the Chinese, this system, which is very good because they ran, a lot of people don't know this, right? China learned the green city development through, in 2000, Hu Jintao and Lee Hsien Loong agreed to send 2 batches of mayor, director general, to NUS for 6 months training, on how Singapore developed city planning, urban sewage, light, power, semua.
So the whole land-based.
The land-based.
Monetization.
Right? So these guys went back, and then they started implementing. So today you go to any part of China, you have got green roads, green highways, everything looked damn good, except that it was based on real estate.
Yeah.
Forgetting they did not teach them the Singapore fiscal system, which is CPF.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a centralized
Yeah,
model.
they did not implement the CPF system, which actually extract the high, as the wages increase, you extract more to put into the centralized savings,
Funds.
right, fund, so that they actually can defend. So to a large extent, if you really, nobody dares to touch the Sing dollar. You know why? Because
CPF.
MAS
MAS
has got 400 billion reserves.
Yeah.
So, and they manage the currency. But everybody knows that behind MAS there is Temasek and GIC, which has probably $1 trillion behind it. So it's undisclosed, right? So if anybody, interfere in my market, I will whack them,
Somebody
not
shot-
just with my regulatory, but my reserve power. Okay? Whereas, the Hong Kong and China, IMF system, everything transparent over fiscal financial reserves. Hey, $3.5 trillion in a market that has a turnover of 4 trillion per day. How do you deal with this?
So basically, the answer is fiscal federalism.
Needs to be, thought through.
Banyak.
No, I'm not saying revisit, but thought through.
Trying
Right?
to imagine the every 10-year federal state in India, how the meeting is like.
Yeah, a big fight. Big fight. There's a big fight.
No, but now with the digital public infrastructure that they're putting in place, I think it would be more often and it would be more database than
Yeah, then just
lack of data.
then just
Yeah.
shouting.
And they may not
Yeah.
do it 10 years, but they may do it earlier also
Yeah.
based on the requirement. A lot about data to look at.
Yeah, it ultimately is data-driven decisions, right? Because if that particular state has a lot of complications, then the federal side should be giving more, okay? But if that's extremely successful, you don't need to do much, right? You don't need to give them so much. So how that is allocated at the moment is decided in EPU or somewhere around, right?
You
Okay.
KE.
Okay, right? So, but the system does not exist for that, discussion between the state and the federal level. So in America, as you know, that's why they're forced to go into the tariffs, because since they only get income tax, which is very low in America, the value-added tax is collected not by
the state.
central government, it's by state level,
Yeah, state collects that.
right? And land tax is also by state level,
Yeah,
right?
federal.
So the federal actually doesn't have that much doesn't have that much revenue.
Income tax.
So they are now forced to use the tariff to get the revenue, to solve their fiscal problem.
Not enough. Okay.
And it's not going to be enough, right? So these things are much more complex. I mean, these are complex systems issues. That's the bottom line, right? If you don't have a single solution, is not the
Yeah,
It's not the issue.
that diagram just now, all this, the linearity and bilateral relations rather than the more complex interlinks.
Yeah.
I think that was from your slides. I think that's anybody else have anything before we? Because you guys, the institute provide this, I know, very healthy fruits and kuih. You better finish it before you leave. But then before that, anybody have anything else? So we can. So we should thank you for coming. I think I will follow through with the KE guys that went home already, but we still need to actually the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So actually, I think they are quite amenable now to ground up kind of thing. But I think modeling an integrated community-based thing, maybe based in the Bhutan model, but replicating that in Sabah, but a more comprehensive kind of a thing that includes, the year 7 thingy, which is more integrated, and then have enough patience to see it fail and being modified before it can be scaled up. I think that's worth trying, right?
Yeah.
Just putting, it's probably, the government probably have 1 year, no more than 1 year,
Right.
before the next GE.
That's right.
So we better start doing something.
Yeah. But the broad trend is there. What I'm trying to say now is, if you really look at Malaysia, under previous Prime Minister, a lot of centralization.
Yeah.
But effectively what is happening is Sarawak is taking a different experimental route, Johor is taking one, Penang to some extent technology one. So, different states are already beginning to experiment with their own comparative advantage. So all I'm just suggesting at the federal level is to try and allow some pilot experimentation, and if it succeeds, then replicate throughout the state, right? I mean throughout the nation.
And also building standards and norms.
Yeah, that's
Because
right.
later on, I think she has a very valid point. In the end, if it's too fragmented,
No.
you need to
I agree.
it back together
Yeah, I
on
agree.
some. Otherwise, the inefficiency would just
Yeah.
be it would be self-inhibiting.
That's right. No, that's a very good point.
Yeah. So thank you.
No,
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Andrew. Thank you, John.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Please finish your food before. Because we spend money on this, okay?
So we will enjoy your hospitality. Okay.
I wanted to get the